to Uncle Moe's for family fun. It's good, 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 good.
Sounds good.
Hello and welcome to Uncle Moe's Family Feedbag, where we look through the dizzying highs, terrifying lows, and creamy middles of The Simpsons seasons 1 to 12. I am, of course, Tyler McCraig, joined as always by my, I guess we'll say for now, chilling co-host, Cal Reader. Cal, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. I've had a bit of a weird day really today. So
All right.
yeah, on in The Simpsons, I can't remember what episode it is where Homer eats the sub what he found behind the radiator, and he goes a bit doolally, and he can't go to Itchy Scratchy Land or wherever it is to go in. So last night I came in a little bit worse for wear, and my housemate, my mother, uh, had made fajitas, which is obviously a great fucking tea, but they hadn't been warmed up properly because obviously I was after everyone had eaten and stuff like that. So she was just like, "Let me warm them up." I was like, "No, no, they're fine, they're fine, they're fine." I ate a bunch, yum yum yum. Woke up in the middle of the night and I was in some ridiculous pain. Went to the
Oh,
toilet,
Christ.
emptied myself. And when I went back to sleep, I couldn't get to sleep straight away. But when I went back to sleep, I had a nightmare that Robert Downey Jr. Um, was not Iron Man, not Tony Stark or anything like that. I met Robert Downey Jr. in a mall or an airport, really pissed him off, and he just kept on trying to kill me. And he was just like, "Keep the fuck away from me, or I'm gonna murder you." And I was like, "You shit, okay." And then I kept on trying to get away from him, and accidentally bumping into him, which pissed him off even more. And then eventually he became a bit of a cannibal and he was like, "Look, I'm gonna fucking kill you and I'm gonna fucking grill you hard, fucking fat boy." Like, I was just like, "Shit, okay." Um, then I had because I didn't sleep very well. uh, had got a taxi into work and the guy was this big anti-farmer and uh, believe said about how the five families run the world and all that stuff. And he's like, "You look at a picture of me, and they've just got nothing behind their eyes. It's like soulless." And he's turned around and he's got fucking psychotic eyes. And then the last call of the day, I had screamed sausage several different times because he couldn't understand the phonetic alphabet because he was Romanian. So interesting day, really. What about yourself?
I don't know where to go from that, Cal. Well, it sounds very
Tune in next week.
nightmarish. It sounds very nightmarish, much like our episode today that we're reviewing. That's what a lovely segue.
There we go.
Oh
Smooth.
my god. Today's episode we're reviewing is Treehouse of Horror 3 from season 4, episode 5, directed by Carlos Baez, written by well, actually 6 writers here, 2 for each segment, if you will. We've got Al Jean and Mike Reese with part 1, Jake Hogan and Wally Wolodarski with part 2, and Sam Simon and John Vitti finishing penning up part 3. Cal, Treehouse of Horror, it's a big one. It's our first ever review. What do you think about the concept itself?
Yes, in regards to the concept of Treehouse of Horror and stuff, I think it's always been a ridiculously brilliant idea. Halloween itself isn't as celebrated over here. It is a bit more now, but obviously when the Treehouse of Horrors started, which was around '92, I think, off the top of my head, um, like Halloween was a thing, but people didn't really do it as much over here. And I'm all about creepy, weird stuff like that. I'm all about something where you can just kind of, especially with like long going series, where you can just kind of do a uncanon episode and just play wild with it. And I think progressively as the series go on, they get a lot more creative. They kind of, I think it's after this one they stop doing the whole it's them telling a story. It's just they'll just do them.
Yeah, I really like the framing devices because the first ever one was in an actual treehouse. The second one, the treehouse before this was they all go out for Halloween and then they can't sleep at night. You got the portrait gallery as well that Bart hosts. Yeah, I miss the framing devices.
Yeah, and I think even for people who you kind of say The Simpsons kind of got worse as time goes on, because there is obviously the massive drop. That's why the reason why we only really do um, seasons 1 to 12. The Treehouse of horror films, regardless of if you hate the series now or if you like them, um, the Treehouse of horrors are always standout classics. Everyone always loves them. There's not really being a bad one, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's like writing a type 5 for a stand up set, They're working their best material into such a confined space that it's mostly always quality, it's mostly always hit, hit, hit.
Hmm.
And with the Treehouse of Horrors, you get to do that on a finite basis or, on a Halloween sort of basis. I can't really say a bad thing about the Treehouse Horror series. I can't think of any other sitcom that you think, oh, Halloween, oh, Simpsons. I can't think of Cheers or Sunny in I don't know about Sunny in Philadelphia because I've not watched all of it. I can't think of Cheers or
Mm.
Big Bang Theory or Peep Show or whatever.
A little bit of How I Met Your Mother. They always used to do like a Halloween special,
Oh, okay.
but it's traditionally just a Christmas special, and like Halloween. It's one of my favorite holidays because it's you can be spooky, you can be weird. Like one of my favorite films growing up was always The Addams Family, and especially The Addams Family Values, um, which I don't like. It's kind of, I don't know. It just feels like it's specialized, not specialized to myself, obviously, but it's something what I always look forward to watching. And even though I'm not as up to date with the more modern seasons of Simpsons, I'll always watch the Treehouse of Horror. When I've looked into it as well, it's the next one. It's they stop it after Treehouse of Horror 4, where they stop doing this connected segues and such like that.
How we kick off this grand Halloween is with a party around the Simpsons house, and everyone's there in their great gear. From this little tiny opening bit, do you have a favourite costume? I'd probably say mine's Martin's,
Yeah,
fitting his
it's got to be
character very
mine.
well.
Or Ned. Ned's quite good. Later.
Oh yeah, Ned later, but I like how not saying exactly what Martin is. He can be whatever he is, but I just say he's very proud of being Calliope. Unfortunately, not so much for Nelson.
I think it kind of plays into Nelson's character, his character basically being his costume, sorry, being one of like the worst costumes as well, being that he's more poor than the rest of them. But then
It's very pound stretchers.
on the other end, it could just literally be because kids' costumes aren't always greatest.
Yeah, we kick off with Marge being a great host, and I never did this game myself, but it's like I don't know, a trickery game, or it's basically a dead witch who died in this house, and the pork chops are her brains, and the slimy spaghetti's her hair. Did you ever do any sort of? Can you remember any parlor games at Halloween parties, or was that not a thing for you, Cal?
Not really. Like I said, I think it's more of an American thing. We always used to trick or treat. We used to go around the neighbourhood and such like that, and then go around my granddad's neighbourhood as well. Dress up at school and stuff like that, but we wouldn't. It's never. I've seen it. I've seen. I've heard of it in Britain as well, where they kind of do the whole. It's a black box and you don't know what's in it. Oh, it's brains and stuff, but it's never really got me really. I don't understand how can people think, oh no, it is brains.
Wait a minute, this is the jam roll you had for tea, Mum. You lying cow. But Homer ends up ruining this because, he is Homer. He's just essentially a food monster. So this is where we delve into the stories. People end up telling 3 scary stories, starting with Lisa. Before we jump into the Clown Without Pity, the first one here, Cal, did you notice that I'm fine with shows reused in animation, but they reused Homer saying it's an evil game, wiggling the pork chop 3 times in what, 15, 20 seconds?
I didn't notice it on this bit, but there is a little bit later on. I didn't realize it on this bit, but I did realize it on a slightly bit later segment. I think it's the zombie one, where Homer opens the door and he like looks back 3 times, and it's the same animation kind of thing. Other interesting point as well. We're looking over good old Cal's facts, which we haven't had for a while because the episodes we haven't done, there's not really been any IMDb facts on it. I mean, Carl's facts. Carl's facts.
It's a welcome return.
Yeah. Looking over it with silhouette at the beginning, Homer is actually fatter than the silhouette, which is obviously reference to Alfred Hitchcock. The thing is as well with the Treehouse's horror films is obviously Simpsons have always been a bit pop culture anyway. Some of it is more dated than others. Obviously, that's just the risk of being, just working with pop culture anyway. The moment you say it, it's always dated. As a screenwriter, we both understand kind of a risk of what you can do. It's like that's why you don't really watch like back episodes of Graham Norton from 2002 or whatever. Like, there's no point.
No, it's very flavour of the week.
Yeah, exactly. But then they're quite smart in how they actually do the pop culture with Simpsons, especially with the with the Treehouse of Horrors, is because they always go for the classics. So like in a later Treehouse of Horror, they obviously do like The Shining, and this one in the latest segment they do the King Homer. And it's just smart more than anything. It's kind of, especially with like horror in general, it's always a good. The thing is with horror is the ones what we remember are you because it's such a finite genre of actually good horror films. Unfortunately, the good ones kind of make sense and kind of are remembered by the pop culture, where it makes them kind of timeless in a way where you can, in a show in 1992, still reference King Kong, which is obviously parodying the older one from the 30s rather than the one from the 70s or 50s or whatever.
And we kick off with Clown Without Pity. Bart ends up getting a load of money off Grandpa at the start with. Now I tell you what, this was pretty much my granddad from the start. Like, I would get some nice birthday money from him, and I would ask him, and he'd go, well, almost the same line as Granddad here. Like, I don't need it, I don't want it, but if anything goes up, if my heating bill goes up, fuck it, I'm calling the council. I think this is one as well, just for like meme culture and quality one-off jokes. It's not even just very evident at Treehouse Horror, but very evident of season 4 entering Golden Peak here, Cal. There's just so many memorable moments in this.
Take this object, but beware, it carries a terrible curse.
Ooh, that's bad.
But it comes with a free Frogut.
That's good.
The Frogut is also cursed.
That's bad.
But you get your choice of topping.
That's good.
The toppings contain potassium benzoate. That's bad.
Can I go now?
No, I've got to agree with you. It's when they kind of hit in the stride and been able to. It's just joke after joke after joke, and I've seen this episode countless times. I can't even remember I don't even know how many times over the years, and there's still little jokes. What I kind of realised just watching it recently compared to the many times as one as well. I will get to it.
Homer forgets to buy him a present, because of course he does, but he swears on Grandpa's grave that he'll get him one right now, and I guess this is the start of many Simpsons meme, Cal, Simpsons shit posts. He visited the Forbidden Planet, the creepy store, asking if he sells toys, and he ends up getting some sort of a doll, but beware, it has a curse on it.
I'm Krusty the Clown, and I love you very much.
Oh, Dad, this is the best birthday I've ever had.
That doll is evil, I tells ya. Evil! Evil!
Grandpa, you said that about all the presents.
I just want attention.
Homer brings home the doll, and Bart absolutely loves it. He's chuffed with his present, but Grandpa warns him that doll's evil, I tell ya. Grandpa, you've said that about all the presents. I just want attention. Now, if this isn't Piers Morgan on Twitter or some other
fucking hell.
Burke who's gotten old.
Pierce Morgan, for any of America for years. I think he was kind of in America for a bit.
He had his own show and he looked sane next to Alex Jones when he was on it.
Yeah, when he's had Tommy Robinson on before, and
of course he has.
This is on Good Morning Britain or whatever, or GMTV or whatever it was before. And if you don't know who Tommy Robinson is, he's this racist bigot kind of guy who was part of the EDL for a bit, but isn't anymore. The EDL is the English Defence League. He led it for a bit, and now he just kind of he's a character. That's all he is. The way he gets his money. Whether he's a smart guy because he's a fear-mongering kind of guy, and he'll just kind of write these books about nonsense, about how the Quran is bad and how Sharia law is going to come back and it shouldn't, and we're beyond all churches and stuff like that. And it'll kind of go on like the hatred of the weak and stuff like that, and then pounce on it. But it kind of shows Pierce Morgan is a bad person when he's on GMTV and all he's doing is just saying, "But you're a racist, you're wrong," and he's going, "Well, no, a better argument is coming from a fucking well-known racist, bigoted guy." And Pierce Morgan, the worst, the even bigger bigot and racist is coming across worse.
Oh, it's them vegan sausage rolls, I tell you. Piers, you said that about all the baked goods. I just want attention. The doll starts giving off odd little moments. It's starting to speak without getting the cord pulled, and pulls out a knife, goes for Homer and that, and Homer's terrified, but the family don't believe that the doll's trying to kill him. But Krusty ends up catching him in the bath here, sends Homer scarpering, and I guess this is fairly true. As much as it is non-canon, the Treehouse of Horror, we get can't even think which one. Patty or Selma. Oh, it is Patty saying, there's the last lingering threat of my heterosexuality, and that is absolutely true.
Yeah, this is the bit what I was going to bring up. Like 12 seasons later, she comes out gay and says she's always been, despite her and Selma having a crush on MacGyver, she's always known that she's gay ever since she was a child. It's really interesting because whether or not they kind of just looked at it and it's just a happy coincidence or whatever, or the Simpsons pre-planned the future.
You'd love to think it's a long payoff, wouldn't you?
Yeah, most likely. I think it's just kind of it's a coincidence more than anything.
So Homer decides I've got to get rid of this doll. So he's very efficient here. I never get why they didn't do this with Chucky and Child's Play. I've never seen it, but I'm sure if they just literally just buried him in a box, buried him in the sea under all the soil with dirty socks, he's never coming back. Surely, this is too smart for Homer, if anything.
Yeah, it's before in the chronological side of like the Simpsons and such like that. Like I've seen a fan theory about why Homer is a lot more of an idiot and the rest of the family are a lot more like stupid later in the season rather than these earlier ones, and it's purely because of radiation from the power plants just making more retarded and the pollution in the water.
Oh, if anything, yeah, that's factor number one. Yeah. Homer drives out into the sticks and sticks Krusty and the suitcase into the big bottomless pit. I don't even get this joke. Again, you talked about Flavor of the Month stuff. Naked photos of Whoopi Goldberg. I don't know who you'd replace that with now, but even I guess maybe a year after this probably aired, it's very dated.
I wouldn't say that as much. Whoopi Goldberg's still a very big character in America anyway. She's on their version of like Loose Women.
Yeah, The View. Yeah,
View. Yeah. So she's very much a character in pop culture. She's obviously she's a comedian as well. She was quite a big comedian in like the 70s and 80s before she kind of hit it big with films, which a lot of comedians, what we know of anyway, kind of did it. But I think it kind of still works because she's still really gross and really annoying.
Howdy, this is just a reminder that if you're enjoying the content so far, loving our podcast, loving the episode, go over to facebook.com and search for Uncle Mo's Family Feedbag, a British podcast, and give us a like there. We will update you on all of our exclusive content and posts as well. Also, if you're in the mood for a bit more Simpsons and more Simpsons podcasts, go over and check out the 411 folks on Facebook and SoundCloud as well. They do lots of great impressions, great analysis of the episodes, and it's generally a good time. And now back with your regularly scheduled listening. All right, little snafu, little ghost in the system, people. But we're back recording. We're back. We're happy now. Actually, quite fitting a ghoul in the system, and we're in a Treehouse of Horror episode.
Not off. And maybe I may post the video of how my laptop actually is at the moment. Potentially that might be an issue of why it's cocking up.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes here, definitely. Yeah. We have the mechanic come over, and it turns out all you needed to do was flick it from evil to good. As simple as that. And so what does Homer do? He's just treating Krusty like his bitch in his dog's bodies now, taking the dog for walks. Mountains of food. I love the design on here. Just grease everywhere, chip packets everywhere, and Krusty. I don't know what sort of life is Krusty leading now. You know, I bet he was happy before. As horrible as he was to Homer, he had like purpose. Now he's just going to be a slave for life. But Stacy makes it all the more better. He's living in Lisa's dollhouse now with Malibu Stacy. What did you think of this episode, Cal? The end of this one, then, Cal?
I think we should. I think we should leave it, and we'll vote them all together.
Oh,
We'll kind of. I think it'd be better if we just list them from like best to worst. So I'll keep my judgment towards the end of the episode.
We go to the next one. We're back with the party, and Homer's trying to tell a story, but he's basically forgot half of it. You know, the woman killed his husband with a golf club, but he said he went bowling. And just it's a horrible mess, but. Grandpa's about to hit them with a story, not a scary one, but you know, he's seen a lot of films. So he retells King Kong, or as this episode's entitled, King Homer. And I actually watched a tiny bit of the original King Kong, the 33 version, Cal, and if I watched that when I was a lot younger, I'd think that's quite scary, like, not even from just like, oh, the technology's horrible and it's scary in a fucking ironic way. No, like, the movement and the fact the audio keeps breaking in pitch, and especially when Kong's fighting the dinosaur, it's really scary, ripping sounds and all that. Horrible.
Yeah, it's aged terribly. However, it is like the animation on Kong is quite scary anyway. There's been a few King Kongs in the time. It kind of shows. It's good. The film itself is an interesting film. It kind of shows what was once scary compared to what it is now. What's not as scary now, as in like as terrifying fucking jump scares or whatever. And Joe Rogan in his podcast makes a really good point where he's watching it. Like R-rated movies don't mean shit. It's because they don't age very well. For example, like The Exorcist, for example. I think we talked about it last week about how The Exorcist was an R rating and now it's not really that scary. The King Kong, the original one from the 30s, that was the relevance of an 18. Oh, what the fuck? I'm just
You're right.
I'm looking. Yeah, no, sorry. You can keep this in. I'm trying to find the King Kong from the
33.
from on IMDb, but I've somehow found King Kong's IMDb page where it
What?
says King Kong was an actor from King Kong. He died on March 2nd, 1933 in New York City. His nickname is the Eighth Wonder of the World. And King Kong's height is approximately 50 foot, which is roughly equivalent to a 5-story building.
Well, Homer doesn't even. Well, I'll talk about it later, but doesn't even seem to make up one story. The ways he fucked. They're about to head off. Burns and Smithers are the sort of captain and the scientist going on to Kong Island there. And Marge comes over and she's looking for work. You know, she saw an ad in the paper. Friendly with monkeys, non-smoker preferred. And Cal, you must have this, much like me, this joke must have went over your head as a kid. And I've seen it in loads of these shit lists and BuzzFeed articles, just dirty jokes in kids sitcoms and kids shows and all that. But the women and semen don't mix line, great line, but like I said, well over the head.
My name is Marge Bouvier. I'm here about Duran. Single white female wanted for mysterious expedition. Must like monkeys. Non-smoker preferred.
Well, you'd be a welcome change of pace from the rest of these crude and uncouth sailors.
Arr, 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 arr.
What do you think, Smithers?
I think women and semen don't mix.
We know what you think. Young lady, you're hired.
Same with me. I think a lot later on in the series, the kind of like gay jokes with Smithers, Burns doesn't really like retaliate much. He kind of just puts it under the rug kind of thing and just ignores it. Earlier in the episode where I kind of mentioned how there was jokes where I only just realised that this watching, that was that was a joke I realised recently, but it's took me around 15, 18 years to kind of realise what that kind of meant, and the whole turnaround of "we know what you want."
Yeah, it acknowledges it.
I got there eventually.
They set off on the journey to Kong Island, and they go there. Marge isn't wiser about they're using her as bait to lure King Homer in, but Burns is just sneaky and malevolent. This is a peak Burns. Judging in my head now whether it's this or the final one that's my favourite, Cal, but on this Burns performance alone, it's currently winning the battle. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's thinking before I came into this episode, I was thinking potentially it might have been the weaker segment, but then I kind of just did remember a lot more of the Killer Krusty one. I'll obviously get onto the zombie one once we obviously view it and such. This episode itself, so the Simpsons, the reason why the Simpsons are yellow is because Matt Groening wanted it that when you were flicking over your channel, they grab your attention, and B, you'd potentially fiddle with your TV to try and get the settings right, to get the colours correct. Al Jean was quite worried about this segment because it was the longest running black and white segment they had ever aired, and he thought that some people might have been concerned that their TV was broke. Which, if you watched the this is going to date it, the Game of Thrones episode with Battle of Winterfell, no spoilers, but you can't fucking see jack shit, boy.
I will say I like the design of King Homer here, and they match up the key scenes pretty well, like the big gurning face of Homer here, and I like the fact they got the there's a scene in the 33 Kong where they use a big massive plastic hand, because back then they could just build sets willy-nilly and props willy-nilly, and they had Fay Ray sort of just wiggle in the plastic massive hand, and the fact they just replicate that dead tracking shot of the hand going while Marge is flailing her arms. I like the match for these key scenes.
Definitely, I think as we were kind of mentioning earlier about the animation, when the animation kind of repeats at certain points, there's the point what I said about the door as well, when Homer keeps the door open. The alien scene, Kudos and what are the names now? I can't remember.
Kodos and Kang, yeah.
There we go. That's actually recycled from an earlier episode as well.
Well, I heard the cheat with them was if a Treehouse Horror episode is running a bit short, they just get them laughing for a good 20 seconds to help fill time.
Yeah, it's a good. It makes sense, really. Like, especially with. I'm kind of just pulling at 6 at the moment. I think the Treehouse Horror series episodes, especially earlier on, were seen potentially as like lesser episodes, so there weren't maybe as much budget allocated to these ones, despite the fact that there's all different colours and more writing and such like that.
Burns gets his wish. He manages to kidnap King Homer with the help of Marge and Smithers. Unfortunately, gets eaten, but that's what happens when you think women and semen don't mix. They're on Broadway, Cal. They've got the big show in New York where the ape's just going to stand around for several or so hours, and then the ethnic comedy of Dugan and Dershowitz with the chubbiest kickline in town. What a show. They start taking photographs of King Homer here, and it enrages them, and he goes off and starts to attack New York City. Before he does, though, I think I've talked about Barney before, but I just love his outbursts, and he's great here. Just with a whoa, look at the size of that platform! Like, not even impressed with this living eighth wonder of the world, but the structure and the build of this platform.
Wow! Look at the size of that platform! Hey, monkey, you want a peanut? I said one!
And he gets really annoyed when he takes his whole peanut bag, but Homer sort of spares him, which is nice for him. But the fact he gets so frustrated and he just starts kicking in, it's grand.
It's a strong Barney episode, really. It does make good quotes. The whole peanut joke did make me giggle.
Oh, and yeah, before I was going to mention this, but before we move on, again, another great bit is when they're taking down Homer on the island. Lenny's part of the crew that's shooting at him, and it's like they just break character. And Homer goes to him and he goes, "Come on, Homer, quit eating me. Like, cut your shit out, mate. We're friends."
Hey, Homer, cut it out. Come on, quit eating me. Ow! Nice shot, Carl.
King Homer's wreaking havoc in New York, but Burns isn't fussed about that. He's going to be fussed about the awful review. He's never going to work a show in this town ever again. But Marge is with him, and King Homer grabs Marge, much like that iconic scene from the 33 Kong, and starts to scale the tower. Well, say scale. Where do you think he reaches, Cal? Because he's above, like, the first canopy.
It reaches, like, not in the 5th floor. On the King Kong, his own IMDb page, one of his trademarks is getting shot by an airplane and dying.
Homer takes the big collapse, takes the big back bump. Where was that in the main show, Homer? Come on, man. He's not dead, but his career is. So Burns leaves him in pain, but Marge takes pity on him and ends up marrying him. It's a big chimp wedding. You get the little joke of the monkey Screech and saying, "Oh, you were the bride of the groom," if it wasn't obvious enough already. And it finishes with Homer eating his father-in-law, and Marge doing the typical Marge, like, "Oh, Homer" line, and the little I tell you what, I wanted them to use that little sitcom sting more. Well, I'm glad they didn't use it right at the end, but I thought maybe that could be a new thing in the Treehouse of Horrors. It's just like a little ironic twist.
It kind of fizzles out a little bit. It's kind of like they didn't know how to end the episode. It's interesting that they kill off, obviously, Marge's dad, being that Marge's dad is kind of dead in the series. I always kind of wondered about it. I just wonder if it's just more of a narrative thing that, Homer has a dad and Marge has a mum, and because it can kind of just model the characters over them.
And we get to our final story, which is Dial Z for Zombies. How that gets set up is, well, everyone's restless now. They all sort of want to leave, but Marge offers them fruit, because fruit is nature's candy. And you want to talk about Vine Cow? Some little punk just yeeted an ashtray at Marge. A bit excessive, but I do appreciate it. Ned bursts through the door with the best outfit of the night, with the gurgling sounds and everything. Scares the shit out of poor Grandpa. And this leads on to Dial Z for Zombies, the great Night of the Living Dead parody there. Starts with Bart giving a book report on A to Z, the baby book. Not so much. He has to redo another book report. So he ends up going to that odd, shady part of the library that was never there before. What did you think of this whole parody then, Cal, of, incantations and raising the dead? Bart finds the Book of the Dead, as Evil Dead would say, the occult book. Lisa's busy lamenting the loss of the first Snowball 1, and Bart decides to, raise the cat back, try and get the family pet back, so they go into the cemetery and start their incantations. Did you catch what the incantations are, Cal? What they reference?
I did indeed. I've got a list of them here. So he says Cullen, Rayburn, Nars, Trebek, which are names of game show hosts. Out of those, do you recognise any of them?
Trebek for Jeopardy, but that's about...
Yeah, same with me. I think it's more specialised to America. Zabar, Chris Edge, Caldor, Walmart.
I'm going to guess billionaires? Because I only recognise Walmart itself.
No, it's names of inexpensive department stores, with Zabar and Walmart being the only ones as of 2012 is still in business. So Prestige is now known as Kmart.
Oh, okay.
Kojak, Mannix, Benachek, Dano.
I would say detectives, because I know Kojak was a detective.
Yeah, exactly right. I reckon
Hey.
Kojak and Dano. The other two I don't as much. Trojan, Ramses, Magnum, Chic.
Filth. I believe it's condoms.
It is.
I'm surprised that got past the censors, but there you go. It doesn't work though, Snowball's not come back, but Bart's raised a bigger eye, all of the dead are being raised, but they rather call themselves, the I was gonna say the living impaired. God, I was gonna say the mentally impaired. Not ready for that Twitter firestorm yet. And this is where we sort of get the japes, I suppose the true archetypes of a good zombie horror film, Cal. But I tell you what, I like these zombies because I hate now in modern horrors that the zombies have got to be lightning fast, like they're brain dead human beings, they should be slow and not be able to catch it. You should be truly thick to get caught by a zombie.
Yeah, it was the 28 Days Later series what kind of introduced the fast moving zombies. Obviously, there's the classic, well, the original film what kind of brought zombies into the mainstream was Night of the Living Dead, which then develops into like the Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead and all that stuff. But you can kind of blame Danny Boyle for running zombies. I do prefer the kind of classic mumbling round ones, the running ones kind of. They used to scare me when I was younger. They're more just overplayed more than anything. But I think it's just kind of, if anything charges at you, you kind of shit yourself a little bit.
Well, howdy, strangers. What can I do you for?
Brains.
Why, Sue Dokes, you rascal. I thought you were dead and...
What is your favourite sort of zombie scene in this? Because I'll run through mine very quickly. It's the zombies going to Flanders' house, and he's very lovely Christian self. What can I do you for? Sue Dokes, you rascal. I thought you were dead, and
See, I think that is a good scene. There's that one, and then there's obviously the Barney scene as well. But my favourite's got to obviously be Homer. He's just like, spare my family, just take me. And then you go, brains.
and he looks really insulted. The zombie outbreak's reaching everyone. It's even reaching the local media. Krusty ends up getting bitten, and fair play to him. He's a true shill artist. He's still, even though he's half brain dead and he's got limbs missing, he's still able to plug that he wants brains. Send it in a PO box to this address. They figured out that the only way to get back is to have another incantation. They've got to go back to the library. Homer gets to be a little action movie star, switching that son-off shotgun and to the library, to the book depository. And they're off, Cal. I love it.
Just before that, probably my other favourite joke in this. As he's about to get in the car.
Hey, Simpson, I'm feeling a mite peckish. Mind if I chew your ear?
Dad, you killed the zombie Flanders.
You was a zombie?
Good old zombie Ned Flanders comes up. He says, hardly ho, neighbourino, can I pick some of his delicious brains? Homer turns around, shoots him straight away. But is it Bart or Lisa? I can't remember. I think it's Bart. Yeah, Bart turns around and goes, Dad, you just killed zombie Ned Flanders. He was a zombie.
I believe at one point that was one of Matt Groening's favourite lines.
It's always good. I think Ned and Homer's relationship's always done really brilliantly, where it's just kind of, especially sometimes where he's just like, he was the best, worst neighbour I've ever had. But there's another joke which kind of we overpass a little bit. When the zombies first initially raise, Willie is digging a hole or something in the garden. He goes, good as new. And a zombie crawls out and runs away. he just breaks it back up. He's like, good as new.
Yeah, they're pretty as a picture. They finally reach the library, and I guess we'll talk about. I'm gonna guess this is your favourite scene in the whole thing, Cal. They go past all the historical figures, Einstein, Shakespeare, but who's there? Who else is there, Cal?
Yeah, the Barney bit, hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Or he's just kind of like, Barney, you're a zombie too? No, but when in Rome.
Yeah, he just turns to cannibalism at the drop of a hat. He's chewing on nuts, and then later I guess later on he'd chew on nuts.
Yeah, hey,
I'm here all day.
Bye. That's the last ever episode of Uncle Mo's, because you'll get no more funnier puns in that. Bye bye,
Nope.
everybody.
Quit here, folks.
It's all downhill from here.
They break through to the library, and Bart and Lisa go through a couple of incantations, not quite getting it right. Lisa turns into a snail, but they get it. Big blast of laser beams shoot through the library, and the zombies just sort of calmly return to their graves. And yeah, that's it. It's very it's a very calm return to normality, Cal. The zombies are now just sort of rotting corpses lying in the streets now.
Excuse me, I'm John Smith. John Smith, 1886. Oh, I'm sorry.
My mistake. I use that quite a few times, actually. I was just having to think when I finish work. That's like one of those hidden quotes where I don't know where it's come from, but I know it's Simpsons. Oh, is this your chair? Yeah. Oh, my mistake. But it finishes with a very sort of knock at Fox and knock at Telly, Oh, we're not mindless zombies anymore. Shh, TV, man fall down, funny. And that's where the episode ends, Cal, not back at the party. It ends on this. And with it ending on this, what was your favourite act? What was your favourite story?
It's an interesting point, because they kind of... I say this a lot about The Simpsons. I don't know if it is kind of over the earlier ones as well. They're all kind of anticlimactic at the end. I think probably the strongest ending is Z for Zombies. Though rewatching it recently, I think it's pure because I knew I was going to be reviewing it later as well. The whole how it doesn't go back to the party kind of is a bit. I don't know. I think they could have probably had one or two more jokes before the end of the episode in the party. But I do definitely think it's probably the stronger segment. Are we keeping, out of curiosity, will you be rating the Segway segments as just one segment as well? There's enough to go there, but there's just not really many jokes. I think if we're doing it as like the core bits, I think the best one is definitely Z for Zombie. Then which I'd give 4 Skinners getting kicked around by the bullies out of 6. Then in my second place, it would probably be King Homer, I think.
What about the whole shebang, Cal? The entire episode?
See, by giving the first 2 segments an equal rating of 3 semen monkey men, Homer monkeys, out of a possible 7, it kind of averages out I'd give it a strong 6 out of 10. Yourself?
Individual story has to be King Homer, because, fun fact, this is my favourite Treehouse of Horror episode, as I watched it when I was young, and I always used to reenact the Homer falling off the tower bit on my trampoline and onto my bed. I also like just the goofy animation of him and Burn, so that on its own, King Homer wins it. The whole episode itself, I'm going to rate 4 out of 5 peanutless Barneys. We are going to pull on the random episode generator lever and see what comes out. And before I do, I've promised Cal that I'm going to leave him... he does a little sound effect, so I can put in the edit of the little nice Mario Kart thing. So, Cal, you can have it. I'm going to keep this one in this time, I swear. Please, let's pull on the lever.
You're a prick, Tyler. The whole reason for that, I am cutting in. You can keep this bit. We met up. We don't see each other as much as we probably both like. He came up to Sheffield and we went for a pint. And it kind of showed in myself that I don't necessarily listen to the episodes throughout, and I was just kind of curious. And I flicked through and I listened to thinking if it's just me making an ass of myself, which I've done for several weeks now, and I find out it's been cut every time. You loyal fans don't hear me making an ass of myself, other than my weird rants and bullshittiness, and because this prick keeps on cutting him out. So I kicked off and threw a pint in his face.
He stayed me full of dark fruits and shame. Okay, Cal. We went there once with Homer's Odyssey. We are going back to Season 1, Episode 11, with the Crepes of Wrath. Do you remember it?
It rings a bell.
Well, the hint I'll give you for this week, Cal, is Parlez-vous français?
I do not like this episode.
Yeah, it's the exchange one, Bart's going to France, people.
This episode used to piss me off, and I'll tell you about it more next week.
In the meantime, you can like us with Uncle Mo's Family Feedbag podcast on Facebook and on SoundCloud as well, the same name, Uncle Mo's Family Feedbag podcast. And we will see you shortly. Take care, folks.
Come to Uncle Mo's for family fun. It's good, 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 good.
Sounds good.